Hey G45ers, I'm here at the Graphic 45 Portland office and I am super excited today. I'm going to be showing you how to make this gorgeous Imagine wallet fold envelope album from scratch. Super fun, lots of fun pages going on in here and pockets as I'm dropping it. So we're going to be making this from scratch. And of course, this is a part of our Club G45 series, which this is volume 7. And so if you don't know about our Club G45, see details below to learn more about that. But if you don't know, you definitely want to become a part of it because it's super cool. And we're doing new projects like this every single month, featuring new collections. And so definitely check that out. I'm Aimee, and I'm going to be taking you on a tour on how to make this, as well as check out another one of our videos that's also included with Volume 7. We'll be making these beautiful Z cards with these fun dimensions as well. Check that out in a separate video to make the cards, and come on a little closer and let's get started on this wallet album. All right, so as you can see, we're going to be creating this gorgeous pocket wallet album with all these fun different flaps and pockets. And our lovely project designer, Annette Green, that many of you may already follow and know how talented she is the mastermind behind this beautiful creation. So this is just a little closer view of what we're going to be creating. And so in your kits, you are going to be getting, of course, the ephemera cards, as well as our new Dream Clear acrylic stamp. Also the ornate metal keyholes, our lovely cashmere decades ink that goes perfectly with the collection, as well as this gorgeous 12x12 patterns and solids pad. And then you're going to want to pull from your stash, of course, some ivory cardstock. So let's move forward. In your projects, you're going to receive one of these beautiful color project sheets. And for the original project sheet that did go out with the first batch of kits that got sold to stores, if you got your kit from a store, unfortunately there was a little mistake on there. Just on the front, you're going to see in step 1, we're going to be taking a 12x12 sheet of ivory cardstock, and the dimension says to cut it from 7 inches by 10 inches, and that is not correct. So the correction is it's 7 inches by 12 inches. So you just want to make that correction, is that you want to make sure with this first cuts, you're going to be doing a 7 inch by 12 inch on that first cardstock sheet. Then you're going to also be cutting a 5 by 5 3/4 and another 5 by 5 3/4, and then you'll have a little scrap. And then on a second sheet of ivory cardstock, you want to cut 2 different pieces at 7 3/4 by 5, and then also 2 pieces by 4 inches by 5 inches. So once you have those cuts created with an ivory cardstock sheet, we're going to go from there. So I'm going to get out my scoreboard, and I'm taking that 7 by 12 inch sheet, and I have come in here and I'm going to score this at 3 1/4. So 3 1/4, and then I'm going to score it at 3 1/2. Okay, at 3 1/2, and then I'm going to score it at 8 1/2. And also at 8 3/4. All right, so once I've scored that piece, I'm going to move on and I'm going to score my other pieces. So my next scores are at on my 7 3/4 and 5 sheet. I have 2 of those, as you can see. And so I'm going to score those at 1/2 inch and also at 3/4 inch. So I'm going to do that to both of those, as you can see, 1/2 inch and again at 3/4 inch. So set those aside. Then I'm going to grab my 5 3/4 by 5 inch pieces. And I, as you can see, have scored these already, and those are also at 1/2 inch. And so, and another one at 1/2 inch. I set those aside, and then I have my 2 4 inch by 5 inch pieces, and I'm going to score those also at 1/2 inch. So I have these nice little tabs, and score this one at 1/2 inch. All right, so now I have my scoring done, and as you can see, I have the corners on these rounded already. And so what you want to do is you want to grab your corner rounder, and on the opposite side of where they have been scored, you're just going to round those corners. So you can put those in a corner rounder and round the corners like so. You can do that. One little trick that you have, if you don't happen to have a corner rounder, in your kits you have these handy ornate metal keyholes, and you can see on the packaging, the corner is rounded. So you could actually take that packaging and you could trace it on the corners and use that as a tip, and then just use your fussy cut scissors and cut those rounded corners. So once you've rounded your corners only on the non-scored sides of all of those pieces. So you want to round those corners on the non-scored sides on all of those pieces, and then also you're going to round the corners on all 4 of the corners of the outside of our wallet, as you can see, like I've done here. So once you have those pieces all scored and ready to go, we're going to now put the album together. So the first pieces we're going to glue on. We're going to glue on those larger pieces, the 7 3/4 by 5, and those pieces are going to get adhered. And I put down some score tape to the outside of the album. So you just want to line it up to the first score mark, and you want to center it on there, because you're going to have that, the next score mark is going to give it so we have a little bit of room for all those fun pieces inside of our album. So I'm taking off my score tape and just gluing these flaps on the outside of the album. So then I have my 2 flaps that fold in like so on the outside. So it's looking good so far. Now from here, I'm going to take my next flap, this is the next size, which these are the 5 3/4 by 5 inch pieces. So I'm going to take my next size, and I'm going to glue these onto the center and the inside of the album. So glue that in the center on the inside. And that actually looks like it's a little bit high, so I'm going to adjust that down. Yeah, so when you're gluing these pieces down, you want to make sure that they fit just right, because otherwise the album will fold a little strange. So glue that piece down there. I'm going to glue the other flap, the other 5 3/4 by 5 on the inside on the right. And the score marks just make it really easy to see where you're gluing each piece. So I've glued that down there like so. Now I'm going to glue my little smaller 4" by 5" pieces right inside of there. So take off my adhesive. And the thing that I love about this project that Annette designed is this is just such a cool folio album. And so if you wanted to, just recreating this would be so easy to be able to do this for any of our collections. So that's the thing that's super cool about these techniques, is that you can, once you have these dimensions all worked out for you like you do in the project sheet, it's just, you can go and recreate this for any of your projects and different things. So as you can see, we've got our flaps all adhered, and we have the basic construction of our album. And then of course our wonderful little flaps on the outside. And that is the base of our album. So now we're going to start gluing down the Imagine papers. So now we're on step 11 from the project sheet. So we put the construction, we've constructed our album, and so now we are at the stage where we're going to start gluing on our papers. So the first paper you're going to take from, of course, the Patterns and Solids, and you're going to take this gold polka dot, and the gold polka dot is just going to get glued on inside the center of our album. So you're going to take that, and you can see I've gone in and I have inked my edges using the dark cashmere ink. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to use some liquid adhesive just for the ease of getting this moving. And I'm going to actually be gluing down the B side of this gold polka dot paper. No, actually, I'm going to glue down with the polka dot showing. Sorry about that. So I'm going to use some liquid adhesive, and that of course is totally up to you. I'm just using this since it's a little bit easier than a score tape, but the score tape is probably what would be the quickest. So I'm just going to glue that down on the center of the opening of the album. And that piece is cut down to 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. So again, that is the gold with dots is glued to 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. Then you're going to cut out a piece of the hot air balloons, and you want to cut this down to 7 inches by 2 3/4. And so what you're going to also do is you're going to score this on 3 of the sides, the 2 sides and across the bottom, and you're going to score that at 1/4 of an inch, as you can see I've done. Once you've scored that across at 1/4 of an inch, you're going to take your scissors and you're just going to cut out those corners so we can create this little pocket. So you cut that down to 7 inches by 2 3/4, and then you're going to score at 1/4 of an inch across the 2 sides and across the bottom at 1/4 of an inch up. So now that I've done that, I am going to create a little pocket with the cute air balloons. And I am going to use some score tape for this, just because with the pockets and things like that, the liquid adhesive is a little bit harder to work with. So take this, and of course we've used the dark cashmere ink to ink those edges, so it has nice pretty edges ready to go down. And this is just nice because we're gonna have, this pocket is gonna be perfect size for some of our 4x6 ephemera cards to fit in there. So take off my score tape. I just think this collection is a lot of fun. When we were designing it, we love steampunk at Graphic 45, like you know, but we've never done like a softer kind of steampunk line. So this was a lot of fun to come up with and kind of go with something that has a softer feel to it. So I hope that you are all liking it. We've been getting a lot of great feedback about it. So this is your first time working with it with this kit. I hope you're enjoying it. So now we've created a little pocket that is going to hold some of our ephemera cards. And so that is where we are with step 11. So now moving on to step 12 in your project sheet. You're going to have a few different papers. And in step 12, you're going to have some of these hot air balloon paper, and on the B side there's this nice pinky peach color, and those pieces we've cut down to 3 3/4. So you've cut that down to 3 1/4 and 4 3/4, and we've also rounded the edges and inked the edges as well. Also, we have cut out, we have the butterflies. The butterflies are at 6 3/4 by 3 inches. So you're going to cut this to 6 3/4 by 3 inches, and on one of them you're going to round the corners on the top with the butterflies right side up, because that's going to go there. And on the other one, you want to make sure you round the edges on the bottom and not the top, because then it will be nice and straight across the bottom there. And then these pieces, we're going to have the peachy pink on the outside pieces. So let's glue those down. And you can see that just by gluing down these few pieces so far, this is already looking super beautiful, don't you think? So gluing these pieces down. And I apologize if I am sniffling. I know that the last video I did was sniffling because I have bad allergies, so I'm trying not to do that this time. So hopefully the allergy medication is working. So get these pieces glued down. And if you've never worked with our patterns and solids papers, this will give you a fun opportunity to play with them, because the patterns and solids are such a wonderful complement to our decorative papers, because a lot of people have asked for cardstock that matches the collections, and this is our answer to that. So we've designed patterns and solids, so it gives you the ability to have the perfectly matching cardstock for each collection. And so, and the fun thing with this is that then it also has some fun decorative papers, but they're more of the kind of monochromatic tones that match the line, and so they're really great for card bases and just the background of maybe a layout or some background pages on albums, so that then you can go in and add some journaling. So with our decorative papers, as we love a lot of imagery, and so those are fun and really handy for fussy cutting. So with the patterns and solids, they're really great for being able to use them for cards and albums and things like that. So they're a really nice complement to the decorative papers, and they always sell really well for us. So if you haven't played with these, I hope that you're playing with them with this kit and you're enjoying them. And there'll be lots of leftover pieces for you to use for other things. All right. So we're going to continue to move on. And so now we are on step 13. Step 13, you're going to cut your paper. Cut 2 papers down the blue stripe, and you're going to cut the papers down to 3 3/4 by 6 3/4. And so you are going to score on the 2 sides, with the stripe being vertical, the 2 sides at 1/4 of an inch in. And then you're going to also score at 2 inches across the bottom. So once you cut your paper down to 3 inches by 3/4 and 6 inches by 3/4, you just want to score at 1/4 of an inch on each side, and then you're going to score at 2 inches. And what we're creating is a fun little pocket. So we're going to be creating this cute little pocket, as you can see on the finished sample. And so what you want to do is you're going to take your paper and we're going to glue these sides around the back first. So I'm going to take my fussy cutting scissors, and I'm actually going to cut down, I'm going to trim this instead to have a nice, beautiful cut. Okay, so you're just going to want to trim. I just want to trim down not the bottom part of the pocket, but just the top. So we're going to cut off those pieces. So I want to stop right there, and then I'm going to do that across the bottom and start on the other side. So now, as you can see, so they cut off those pieces, but not across the bottom. Those are going to be able to wrap around there just perfectly, and I'm going to have my pocket. So I'm going to do that to the other piece as well. Okay. And I'll just leave that piece hanging until I can snip it with my fussy cutting scissors. All right. And you could use your fussy cutting scissors to make those cuts. I just think that the paper trimmer can always trim that better than I can. So that is totally up to you. So I've cut those pieces off. Now I'm going to adhere those flaps around the back side. Again, since it's a pocket, I prefer to use the score tape, So we're gonna use some score tape here. And all right, gotta pull off that score tape. Glue that down on the back side. And then do that to the other one. And of course, I'm going to round those edges just on. So I'm going to, since I already have one for my right side, or my left side, I'm going to do this one on the opposite. So that's something when you are rounding your corners to be really aware of, is that those are always going to be opposing sides. So my paper trimmer, because that's two papers, is not wanting to do that. So I'm going to use my fussy cutting scissors to go in there and just make that trim with rounding that edge. So if you don't have a rounder, it's not super easy just to make that rounded edge. Either eyeballing it, or like I said, you could use the edge on the packaging of the keyholes. So I've got my two pockets ready to go, and I'm going to glue those down to my album now and ink those edges. And it's just fun. I love all of the pockets because these size pockets are perfect for the smaller ephemera cards that are included in your packet. And so you just want to center them on here. It's going to be some of that ivory edge of showing. So I'm going to center those on the flaps, about 1/4 of an inch or so on each side. So glue that down. Use my little roller here. Right. Our flaps down there. Now we're going to move on to step 15 already. And so in step 15, you have a couple of these little ephemera cards. And those ephemera cards just go in our pockets. And so those are coming out of your journaling and ephemera card packet. So you can grab 2 of those that go in here. You're gonna have a lot of extras to use. So I've just, in these 2, I've used these little hot air balloons that look nice. All right, and so now on step 15, you are going to take your blue rose paper from your Patterns and Solids pad, and you're going to cut these pieces down to 5 inches by 4 inches and 3/4. So again, 5 inches by 4 3/4, and you're going to cut 2 of them, and then you're going to round your edges on one of them on the right side and on the other one on the left side. And with all of our papers, usually with these kind of patterns, you want to make sure you have them right side up, because if you had them upside down, it's not super obvious, but it is if you look closely. So just make sure you have that paper right side up before you trim off those, round those corners. And then you're going to glue those pieces down on those side flaps with the lovely rose exposed. yeah, I think this could be a lot of fun for a gift. And so, especially with all the summer trips and things people are out doing, good, if you have a birthday of someone, you could always put together something really nice highlighting a summer trip, or give it to them even blank and they could put in all their own pictures and personalize it themselves. And so I've glued those 2 pieces down there. And so as we're moving forward, we're on to step 16. And step 16, we are going to take out our fun stamps and we're going to stamp it. So before I glue these 2 gold papers down, so the gold papers, those are 5 inches by 4 3/4 as well. So they're the exact same size as those blue ones. So you're going to cut out 2 of those. So cut out 2 that are 5 inches by 4 3/4. And we are going to be using the gold side. And you're going to round the edges on one of them on the right side and the other one on the left. See, we're in a routine now. You should be a pro. So grab your dream stamp. You're going to grab this cute little butterfly clock from that. We're really excited about these new clear acrylic stamps. Stopped doing stamps for a little bit, and we were doing cling stamps before, and we'd had so many requests to do the clear acrylic, and so we made the switch, and we were really happy that we did, because the quality of the stamping with these stamps is just amazing. Like the detail on them is, I would say, far superior. So we're really excited about the clear acrylic stamps. So I'm going to take my dark cashmere and I'm just going to get it covered on that butterfly. And then I'm just going to stamp in. So the way that these are going to be positioned is like so. So let me position them in the right direction. And I'm going to stamp in the top corner of each one of them. So, and of course, this is your own album, so you can do that and improvise as much as you like. So you see how cute that little detail is. So we're going to do that again to the other side. And I'm going to tilt that on an angle. And voila. Super easy. So we're done like that. Now I'm going to ink these on there, or glue them on there, I should say. Yeah, this is definitely one of those projects that once you get going on it, it's really simple, because a lot of the steps are kind of similar. So one of those projects is very low stress, high enjoyment, more relaxing. That's what we're going for, right? So okay. All right. You can see this is just coming together beautifully. Now I'm going to glue, you want to cut out the peach roses peachy pink roses, and you want to cut these down to 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. So you're going to cut 2 of them down to 6 3/4 by 4 3/4, and of course you're going to round your edges on one on the right side and one on the left side, and then you'll adhere those down. And of course, as I'm going over these cuts, you do have that handy project sheet that has all of the sizes and everything in there. So you can definitely, that's what you want to reference. Just remember there is that one correction on the front by the 7 inches by 12 inches. But other than that, that is your trusty guide. I love the dark cashmere ink with this collection. The brown looks perfect with the steampunky feel of it. Okay. And as you can see, we've got most of the papers glued down here. So now we are going to be creating some pockets, and we're moving on to step 17. So in step 17, you are going to take from your peach roses, you're going to take one of those pieces and you want to cut it by 5 inches by 3.5 inches. So cut one of those to 5 inches by 3.5 inches. You are going to round all of your corners on that one. You're also going to take the peach words on one side, and then also it's like a cream kind of subtle pattern on the reverse side. So you're going to take one of those and you're going to cut that to 4 3/4 by 3 1/4. You're also going to round the edges on that, and that's going to become a nice little mat for and you're going to take one of your ephemera cards, one of your 4x6 ephemera cards, and you're going to cut it down to 4.5 inches. So we've just cut it down on the bottom to 4.5 inches. So we've taken the ephemera card that on one side it has the elevated house, but on the other side it says create your own dream. So we've just cut off the bottom, so we've just cut it down to 4.5, and that's going to become our fun little pocket for this piece, this little journaling piece, or you could add a photo to this, whichever depends on the use. And then the exact same thing. So again, you're going to cut that down to 5 3.5, and then also by 4 3/4 and 3 1/4. So we're going to adhere those together, and we're going to do the same with one of these, the other ephemera cards that has a little postage stamp on the top. And so you're just going to cut off the bottom, and you're going to cut that down to 4.5 inches. So now let's get to adhering all these pieces. So I'm going to glue on this nice little photo mat on here. And just center that on there. Nice little border. Do that the same to the other one. Yeah, I love this, the patterns and solids, how easy you can create little journaling cards and things to add to albums and all of your paper crafting projects. I've added that piece there, and so I've already inked the edges, so And then with these some score tape, and just on 3 sides, the top, bottom, and the side on the outside of the album, so that we can use this as a handy pocket. That's what's, I think, a lot of fun about these ephemera cards, is how easy you can use them for different purposes. So not only can you use them as they are, as fun, just cards to add to a project, or you can use them if you're into pocket scrapbooking. But they're also great card toppers, but they're really nice additions to mini albums, since they are double-sided, and so having them to use as pull-outs. But then Annette is so creative in using these as pockets, just with the really great design on them. So and so I just want to have about a tiny border on all 3 of those sides. I can slip this in there a little bit tight. Might have used too thick of a score tape on that. That's something I would be aware of when you're creating that, is make sure your score tape isn't going down too far, which all right. Which I think it is on this one too, so I'm going to try and roll that down a little bit so it's not, so it gives me a little bit more of a pocket. So, all right. And you know what I did do is I actually put it on the wrong side. And so I'm just gonna have to take it off of this, this side. I didn't look at that right. So that's something to be aware of when you are you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually just pull out a new ephemera card. So I accidentally put the adhesive side on the inside, on the wrong side of my pocket. So I am going to grab another one of these 4x6 postcards, and so I'm grabbing one of those, and I'm going to cut it down to 4.5. So I'm just going to cut off the bottom like so. All right, so once I've done that, I'm going to round the edges on those bottom. So they come with rounded edges on them before they're cut, but since we cut it, we want to round those edges. And the bottom piece where I just cut it, hurry and ink the edges on that. Okay, so now that I've done that, I want to make sure that I don't make that same mistake again. And I'm going to actually use my thinner score tape. So I'm going to go across the bottom. Okay, across the top. And then I want to go on this side, on the far side. So I'm on the left side once it's on the reversed. A little tricky. So then that will go on there. Perfect. So now I'm going to take off the back side of the score tape. And the thing that's nice about that little mistake is there are extra ephemera cards in your kits that you're not going to be using. So we have the ability to use that, and it's not a huge deal. It's not a big deal. Okay. So now you can see we have our lovely pocket, and that thinner score tape worked much better. So we have moved on from step 18 and we're now on step 19. So we're just cruising along here. So now from here we want to, all right, so you're gonna take and you're gonna get your gold paper with the, on the back side it's the words. And so you're gonna cut that down to 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. So you want the gold words and you're gonna cut those down to 6 3/4, 4 3/4. And so then this is, of course, they're gonna go on the outside flaps. So I've rounded the edges on one side of each one of those. I'm going to glue that down with the gold on the outside. I know some of you are probably thinking at home, well, I really like the word side more. And of course, if you do like the words more, you're welcome to put them down to be exposed. It's totally up to you. We'll always support anyone that wants to make any tweaks to the design. I actually love it when we're teaching classes and there's always one student in the class that takes that creative license to adjust the project to their own taste, and I think that's so great. Not afraid to try something new. We have that on the outside. All right. So you can see everything is coming together. Now we are on steps 20 to 22. And so the pieces that you're going to need to have cut is you're wanting to have a peach roses, the peachy pink roses. And this is a 6 3/4 by 3 inches. Okay, and that's going to be going on the top flap of the outside of our little wallet. Then you're going to be cutting a piece that is the gold polka dots. That's going to go across the bottom. And that piece is 6 3/4 by 3 inches. Okay. So first we're going to glue those pieces down. And so you do want to have cut from the peach colored solid paper The roses are on the back side, but the side we're going to be using are these little strips. And so, or the little peach pink strips. And the strips are 1/4 of an inch by 3 inches. And those are super thin and tiny, so kind of challenging to cover or cut, but you can do it. And I'm going to ink these edges on this really quick. And so what we're doing is we're going to be creating this fun stripe effect across the front flap, top flap of our little album. And you can see that just like something that's so simple as just cutting up these little strips adds this great detail. And in person, like you'll see, just with that extra dimension is just such a nice touch. So we're going to be adding the strips. You definitely want to use your ink and ink those edges because you can really see the shading. Just makes it look so much nicer. All right. Are you liking it so far? Hopefully, I imagine you are. I mean, super cute. I know that the folio albums online right now and with our design team are just so popular, and it's super cool to be able to see all the different creative ways to come up with something. Like, I love that they're from scratch and there's just so many different options of what you can, how you can create it. All right. So now that I have those inked and ready to go, I'm going to glue down my top flap piece with the roses exposed. So it has that nice contrast. Okay. Glue that down. And once I'm finished, I'm going to go back and ink the edges of my album too. Ink all to pull it all together. And then just glue it across the bottom flap. Nice polka dots. Who doesn't love polka dots, right? All right. And so at this stage, you should have this awesome little wallet that has kind of come together just beautifully. So what we're going to do with these strips is we're going to take a ruler and I'm going to line this up on here, and it is 7 inches across. And so at 3.5 inches is where I'm going to start. So 3.5 inches is my middle marker. And so this piece would go right. I want to keep this in the middle. And then I'm going to work my way to the right and then to the left. And then I'm going to space these only 1/2 inch apart from one another. So I'm going to put my adhesive on my first strip. And I'm going to mark that at the 1/2 mark. I'm going to take my tissues, get any of that excess glue up. And so that is my starting point. Make sure we're still good. And for something like this, I actually kind of like the liquid adhesive because you have a little flexibility to move it. And so I'm just gonna now just step my way down at a 1/2 inch, and I'll try not to make the biggest mess, but that is not a guarantee. All right. Ah. Okay, you can see those are just getting placed a 1/2 inch apart from one another. And I'll just continue placing those at a 1/2 inch spacing. All right, so now I have placed all of my stripes going across the top flap of my wallet about a 1/2 inch apart. One of the things that was helpful is I cut a piece of scrap paper down to just a little under a 1/2 inch wide, and then I was using that as like a template to place each one, which was really super helpful. So just a little tip for you there. So now we're going to glue on a few pieces. And the first thing across the bottom we're going to do is we're going to take a strip of paper, and you want to take your the pink peach side and then the cream side on the reverse, and you're going to cut a strip down to 6 3/4 by 5/8, and then you want to grab your stamp set again, and in your stamp set, let me grab that. You see we have this gorgeous little border across the bottom, and I'm going to grab that, and then I'm going to put my little butterfly back. Okay, and so then I'm going to take my cashmere ink again. I'm going to ink up that border piece. Now I want to actually try and get that lined up on one of those line, and I'm just going to stamp across here, center in the center, and okay. And just do that again, put more ink on there. And just kind of line it up with that one. Okay. And then just the end piece. And stamp that across. Beautiful. And I'm going to adhere that just across the bottom. It's a nice little accent piece. And then you can see we're going to be doing a lot of fussy cutting, as well as adding our nice little metal piece, which we'll do first before we start fussy cutting. All right, so we have that goes across the bottom. From here, I'm going to go to step 24 and 25. And so what you see is we have grabbed some of the ephemera cards. And here, this one, we're going to be fussy cutting the butterfly. And we're also going to be fussy cutting a stamp at the top. Then also these roses down here at the bottom. Then we'll be fussy cutting out the butterfly separately, as well as these roses and clocks and everything. So you can see on the sample, these are going to be creating these beautiful 3D dimensions, kind of decoration on the front cover. So let me get started on some fussy cutting, give you a couple tips. So we'll start with the little butterfly. And so with fussy cutting, of course, the key is some little cutter bee scissors or something super small that you enjoy working with. There's a variety of different things out there. And then you just want to take your paper and you can kind of just move your paper around your scissors to cut out and get in there and get a close cut on the butterfly. And so you can see with the antennas, I don't actually worry about cutting those out on the butterfly. They're just too skinny for me. Some of our design team members and some of you out there, I'm sure, are master fussy cutters and will cut those out, but some of you, don't worry about it if that's just a little bit too intricate. And so you're gonna just cut that out, and you're gonna do that to each one of those things that we just went over from some of those ephemera cards. So now I'm just gonna continue cutting out those pieces. Okay. So cut out and fussy cut all of the pieces. I've got my 2 different sets of roses, my butterfly, and also my stamp. So now I've taken my scissors. You can do this with a stylus or anything. And I'm just I'm creating some dimension behind my fussy cut pieces, because I'm going to be popping these up on some nice 3D adhesive. And so you can use your favorite 3D adhesive as well. So I'm just going to follow the example of I'm just kind of put this up in the top corner using some of this pop-up stuff. And I think the dimension on the front cover just is a really nice touch. So position that just towards like so, and then position this one down across the bottom. I'm gonna put my stamp down first, and I'm gonna actually just glue that down since that one goes down first. And now I'm going to glue on one of my keyholes, and in your package you can pick whichever one that you'd like. And I have a little scrap piece of paper that is cut down just to 1 inch by 1/2 inch, and that's just going to go across the back there. Using some big thick tape for this, because I want my metal piece to really be strong on the front there. And it's also nice because the metal offers, because it's pretty weighty, that you'll be able to tell that it has a nice weight to it, that it will actually hold that flap down. So once I have that on there, I want to pull it off, but I want it to keep that paper in place to cover up that hole. And then I'm just going to glue that on the center, weighting it heavier on the top. And you see that that just finishes that front cover just so beautifully. All right, so now we're just going to do a few final steps just to finish this up, and you can see it's coming together beautifully. Across the back, we're going to do this nice polka dot back, and that paper you want to cut, it's 6 inches by 15 by 16, and 4 inches by 15 sixteenths. And this is step 26. So be sure to reference your project sheet when you are cutting out your sizes. I'm just gonna center that across the back. Finish that back up nicely. And then I'm gonna move to the inside of my album. And so on steps 27 through 29, you're gonna grab 4 of your different 4x6 ephemera cards that have the horizontal design on them. And then we are just gonna be gluing those on some of the insides of the album. And so we're gonna start out with this one with the cute teapots. And of course, if you wanna leave these empty for pictures, or if you wanna flip the side of the ephemera card and use like the side of the ephemera card that has the ability to do more journaling, feel free. So we're just gonna do this slowly, moving through and adding these fun ephemera cards. And see, look how great the B-side is too. So that would be nice to have the B-side on there also, but that's totally up to you. These sides are fun too because they have the great sayings. Nothing happens unless first we dream. Beautiful. And then the final 2 just go in the little pocket all the way on the inside, like so. And then we just need to add our little final accent pieces. So we've taken some of the gold dot 3¼ of an inch by 5/8 of an inch. And I've stamped those with that fun border piece that we were just using. And we're just gonna add those accent pieces on the inside. And then we have put together this gorgeous wallet envelope together. And this is definitely one of those that I can see a lot of you recreating other projects, other collections with this. Get out the extra glue. Love it. Awesome. And so that is our final step 30 of our beautiful wallet fold envelope album featuring our Imagine collection. And you just have to love all these pockets and different areas for journaling. And there you go. So thanks so much for joining me. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out the Z Fold card that's a part of Volume 7's kit, because we'll be doing that as well. So thanks for joining. Bye.